am here with Eric Dorsey, and he was one of the leaders of the 2 Hour House Project. And Brian Conaway had become the president of the Home Builders Association
he was.
that year. And he was looking for a way to increase the association's membership. And sometimes a simple idea has the ability to make a real difference. And his idea to increase the membership ended up getting industry competitors to band together as volunteers to do something very special for the community. Now, you guys broke a damn world's record, creating a remarkable showcase and changed the way everybody involved looked at their lives. And I mean, what he did is he saw a news story in California of a house being built in 3 hours and 44 minutes and 59 seconds. And the more he looked at it, the more he realized that he can build a house in less time. So they ended up building a 2,300 square foot house, exceeded code from start to finish in a time it takes to watch a Monday night football game. So tell me when he first approached you. Tell me your story about how you got involved and just kind of your experiences going through, just whatever.
Well, he called, several of us, and, he came back from California, said, hey, I just watched this video of a house being built in a little over 3 hours in California. And we just thought, he just lost his mind. We just there's no way, because it typically takes 4 months to build a house. And and then he showed us the video, and just wow, this is doable. And then he put it all together, and we started having meeting after meeting after meeting. And, it's strengths in numbers for sure, but there were just countless hours, behind the scenes. And, kudos to him. I mean, he was the brains behind all of it.
What were you in charge of?
I was in charge of the framing committee. And so we just got a lot of different framers. Shane Fisher was one of them, and Eddie Waterman was one. I'm sure I missed several others. But
so now the frame committee, what does that do? Tell me what that means, frame committee. Go ahead.
Yeah, the framing committee consisted of building the walls and coordinating everything with the concrete guys, the plumbers, and then of course we had the jigs built to the side to build the roof. So we were all in coordination. Really, it was just one committee, but it was several committees all basically in one committee, but we're all in conjunction with each other.
When did you start to believe it could happen, number one? And number two, how many naysayers were there? I mean, I'm sure you had doubters and the whole deal. Tell me, what experiences did you have there?
I was definitely a naysayer at first, but then he showed all of us the video at Tyler Area Builders Association, and we're like, wow, this is doable. And then we finally realized that it could be accomplished, and I think we finally put all the naysayers, away after they saw what we did do.
Just real quick, I just want to say this. I mean, if you look, you're talking about building a 2,300 square foot house from start to finish in a time it takes to watch a Monday night football game. I mean, imagine all the building materials they use building the house that you live in today. Every sheet of wallboards, every drop of paint, to the house that people live in, and to be able to accomplish that. I mean, so what did you do on the framing? I mean, you can't do it the traditional way. So what were the ideas come from? And I'm sure you had competitors that worked together too.
Yeah, we actually built the walls on the ground, level ground, as the concrete was curing, because of course the concrete was curing. We're popping shot lines in 10 minutes because it cured so fast. So again, strength in numbers. All the guys, picked the walls up, set them on top of the concrete, and put all the interior walls together, all the exterior walls together, nailed everything together. And then they lifted the roof and put the roof up on top that already had the duct work. Most of all the wiring, the cans, and everything was already inside the roof. So when they laid it down, you already have your structure, and the rest is basically aesthetics.
And let's make sure. Tell me if I'm correct. So you have one group putting the roof together, roughing in all the plumbing, the electrical, the wiring. Then you had the cement team that they got the cement to dry in 22 minutes and had to harden and make sure that was ready to go. And then you were part of the framing that built the walls and got it. You had to build it inside out. How did y'all figure out how to build it inside out instead of outside in?
Well, that's why, once the concrete was able to, cure, we already had the outside walls basically, framed up, and then everything else was done on the inside once we could walk on it and start popping shot lines. So once the lines were, popped, then we started doing all the interior walls. And then after that, then we just set the roof up on.
Well, with that, you had to have tremendous communication. Tell me about the meetings and how you guys, how did it start, and how did you? I mean, that's important.
We had hours and hours of meetings, like weekly. I mean, something to this magnitude does not get built in just a couple of meetings,
So from one meeting to the next, I mean, the ideas, just everybody just started thinking about different ideas. I mean, how was that structured?
It was a lot of was one meeting after the other, a lot of communication, a lot of on the job site, training, a lot of people doing work after their normal everyday work, just practicing, what they can do quicker and how they can, especially like the garage door guys. I mean, they were able to hang a door in, I think it was 7 minutes.
Yeah, I heard a story that Brian told them they had 10 minutes to figure out a way to put in the garage door.
But the concrete was key.
Yeah, they said there was no way it could be done, and next thing you know, they figured out how to do it in 3.5 minutes.
Right.
So, it's sometimes we're not challenged to be at our best, and then you figure out a way to make it work. You said the concrete was the key.
It definitely was the key. Having that guy there that mixed the concrete to where it had the ability to dry, that quick, so we could pop the chalk lines. But it was curing so fast. I had blisters on the bottom of my feet because it cured so fast. It was so hot. The chemical reaction in the concrete, it was just burning people's feet, even with shoes on. But it gave us the ability to put the walls on the concrete, because without that concrete drying like it did, you would never have. I don't think you would ever be able to do
Who
it
was
to
the
our
guy
house.
that was in charge of the concrete?
It was
Dick Shelf.
I don't remember his name. It was a guy with, I think at the time, it was Transit Mix. I hope I got that right. And I don't remember the actual guy. I don't remember his name, but
Let's talk about the concrete. It took 13,000 PSI to get that thing to dry. Now, did you know that the Texas Department of Transportation uses that cement mix to dry its roads?
Wow,
so
I didn't
there's
know that.
innovation from a project. We're talking about 20 years
Wow.
ago. That's another thing. We're on our 20th anniversary since that happened. That was October 1st, I believe, 2005. So now we're at, what are we, March 27th, 2025.
Right.
So we're actually, all the way to October will be the 20th year when this happened.
20 years ago, that's crazy.
So when you start to tell a story around without people seeing it, what are they thinking when you tell them about the 2-hour house story?
Well, they just think you're making up a story, and then you tell that story over and over again to different people, and they're like, okay, well, how does a concrete, dry that quick? How do you get the mud to dry that quick on the walls? It was just always some skeptic out there that just didn't believe anything you were telling them. So I got to the point to why wouldn't he bring it up in conversation, because no one believed it. Because this is before digital age. We didn't have Facebook back then, no camera phones. So it was just basically, whatever was being filmed there is what we had. And so we didn't really have proof to show like we do now, other than the video that you have.
Well, how I found out about it was I'm at the Texas Motor Speedway, and I'm having a good Coors Light, and I'm walking in between all the motorhomes, and I see Steve showing the video what his son had accomplished. And I looked at it, and it was a 3-minute video. I said, play that again.
Play that again.
He played it again. I went, man, every business principle is in that story. You had teamwork, you had efficiency, you had time management, you had organization, you had inspiration, you had to have a belief system. I mean, there were so many principles that we're human creatures of the eye. We believe what we see. And like you said, you had doubters until they see it.
Yep.
Quick story. I'm talking to about 1,000 advisors one time, and I said, 2,300 square foot house, done in 2 hours and 52 minutes. Can it be done? And what are you thinking right now? And someone goes, shitty house. It can't be done. Blah, 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 blah. And then I show the video, and then I stop and I go, how many other areas of your life you set limits for yourself without realizing? You know what I mean? So I know what you mean. It's
it's funny you brought that up, because a lot of people are like, I wouldn't live in it. But the city inspectors were there, and they walked through and said it was livable, and
Did you have city inspectors in your meetings too? Because I heard they were involved all
they
through
were
the process.
involved, right? Because we had to make sure that we did build this, up to city code, which back then, I'm sure it's changed now, but back then it met all the city requirements to get a green tag, to be a residence that you can move into, and but yeah, they were in all the meetings too. So it was a whole bunch of it's all about teamwork, without the team, we would have never been able to accomplish that. One person cannot do all of that. Brian was the brain behind it. He put it all together, and with his leadership, we did it, and it would have never happened unless we had a leader like him. It's
here's the thing: is that you really realize that people have different unique abilities, and teamwork is the key. And as we were kind of wanting to show the principles, because we're trying to create future leaders to have the confidence to whatever direction they want to go, they have the confidence to see what it looks like to make something happen. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you got to work on the mindset, on the belief system of these, just like you.
Yeah.
Real quick, you had the practice house happen 2 weeks prior to that. Tell that story.
Yeah, that was epic failure.
What happened?
It was the concrete. The concrete mix was not right. And literally, I think they probably had to take one of the concrete drums, separated, or maybe they trashed it, I'm not sure. But it was actually curing inside the drum. And it was shooting out top blocks, which you can't form concrete with that. And but yeah, round 2, it was spot on. That guy.
Yeah, so let's think about it. If I understand it correctly, there was 2 houses y'all were going to do at one time. Right. So you had Team A and Team B. Mm-hmm. And then as soon as they said go, people they were stuck in the cement. Is that correct?
Yes, they were. Yeah, and some of the concrete was just coming out in big chunks. You couldn't even form it. It was unformable. It came out real viscous. It was just, you couldn't use it ever.
What did you think when that happened?
I just thought setback, because I'd already watched it done in California, in less than 4 hours. So we knew it could be done. But we just went back to the drawing board, and the concrete guy, he got his mixture right. He did some more practice runs at the plant. And so when we came back for round 2, we were ready and prepared. I think everyone else is ready, but the concrete, we just couldn't proceed on because without concrete, you can't build a house because it's not a pier and beam. And once he, figured out his mixture, round 2 was perfect. It was
round 1 for you on the framing part. What did you learn from the first round that you improved on the second round?
I think a lot of different setups, about where people were, where we're going to form up the, build the walls on the ground, because you can't have like a slab already poured, so you're literally just looking for the flattest surface that you can find to form, to frame the walls up. And then you pick them up and set them on top of the concrete. So we learned a lot from the practice run, especially with the concrete, but it sure helped everyone being there, being together, and kind of being on the same page a little. And that way I think round 2 was a lot smoother, for having. So I'm not really glad that the first one did that, but I think we did learn enough to where we could, go back and regroup and have some more meetings, and then do round 2, and that was to perfection.
Did you let some guys go between 1 and 2, or everybody was engaged, ready for round 2? Everybody stayed on board, and in fact, I think we might have even picked up some more people. We already had the idea, and Brian had a spreadsheet, and he had everything coordinated to what time everything that was going to happen, like far as the forming up of the concrete being poured, the plumber, the sheetrock, tape bed, everything was down to almost like a minute. And we're talking about interior doors and baseboards, the bathroom fixtures, the countertops, the floors, the ceiling, even all the way to the doorbell, and it had to exceed code.
Yep.
Now, if I understand it, all the city inspectors were involved. It was a year and a half of planning, right?
It was. Maybe at least. Maybe it could be 2. It seemed like it took forever for us to ever get to the point to where we could do it.
When did you get excited about it versus, or because the people were involved, you were excited about it?
I just think all the people, everybody would always show up at all the meetings. There was really never a vacant seat. I think everyone was wanting to beat. Of course, it was California, and I think people wanted to beat that record, and kind of bring the trophy back to Tyler.
Did you, when you had industry competitors banding together, right? So you had people that were in competition.
We never worked with each other.
And never worked with, and just, it goes to show the human spirit is alive and well. If the game's big enough, you don't worry about these freaking egos. You figure out, kind of like we're talking about going to Mars. I mean, you kind of unite the world to go to Mars,
Right.
And it's something bigger than yourselves. You don't get in the weeds of all the crap, But so now as we're rolling 20 years later, you personally, what did you take away from it? What did it do for you personally, that event?
I just think with the right team, I think anything is possible. I mean, anything is possible if you have the right people on your team. And it's about teamwork. It's about leadership. And when someone says that this can't be done, I think that gives me more energy to show that it can be done, because we proved that it did, and it was done. 20 years ago.
Doing that now, framing and putting teams together in construction. Tell me what you do today.
Yeah, more commercial now, doing a lot of hospital things, but a few residential things, but primarily more commercial. It seems to be easier now in this day and age. Commercial. No Pinterest, no HGTV.
And going back to the 2-hour house, when did your team meet with their team? How did that work when you knew the cement had to do what they had to do, and then they probably had to do a couple of parts, or even the roof, you had to do something to make sure it all jived. When did all the team captains meet, and how did that work?
We just met weekly. And we would go to the job site. They would do some practice runs, like on a house they were constructing. And the new thing that we did do were the sawhorses. I mean, there were little jigs that we built the roof on, and we put pivot points, in the roof, and we had cranes that lifted the roof and set it on top of the walls. So that was definitely key. But it was a lot of practice runs, a lot of communications with our flip phones back in the day. And, unfortunately, we couldn't take pictures and send to each other or video anything because we didn't have that technology then. So it made it a little bit more difficult. So we'd have to show up to each other's job site and get with them and more do it old school way, which made it a little bit more challenging. But we learned more. And I think face-to-face conversation is 10 times better than phone conversation, because a lot of things get lost in translation. Especially with text messages and phones, but being on the job at those job sites really helped, tremendously. I mean, it was it helped us with the framing for sure.
This roof is built over here.
Yep.
Then you did the framing, and of course, you had to have the walls. You were talking about inside all the walls, right?
Yeah, everything was on the exterior. Then this was being built off to the side with. Then you had to put pivot points where you could lift
the whole thing up.
lift the whole roof up and set it up on.
Now that's got scary because you didn't want it to drop and go kill a bunch of folks.
And when we did that, we made sure,
and it has to go right on the deal perfectly.
Right.
So you've got one team doing the roof.
And he had some ropes tied at each corner trying to pull, but when this was going on, nobody was inside this.
Yes, that's right.
Totally empty, for obvious reasons. And then they just set that on top. And
but the walls were already built.
Yes.
The cement's already dried.
Yes.
The walls were built outside.
Outside
the cement, and it just came together like a puzzle.
And then, like, this whole wall was already done. The door opening, the windows, already had the headers in, and just lifted it up and set it, and then shot each bottom plate down into the concrete that cured in like 10 minutes, and then just set the roof on top. And then once the roof was set, and we started to bolt this to the wall structure, then everybody could come inside and start doing all the rough end with the electrical, the plumbing, and then And like I said before, the HVAC, most of the ductwork was already hanging from the roof.
So they were
Right.
over here putting the ductwork, building, pushing everything through.
Yeah, it was already
and all
there.
the wiring, and you just kind of plugged it all together to make it work.
And then you sat it down, and then everything was plumbed and wired. And of course, they had already had their own electrical and plumbing committees that had been working countless hours like we were with. And then you sheetrock and tape bed and texture and paint, and then you come in with the countertops and trim it all out. And yeah, it's crazy just to even think about it, that it
all happened.
That happened that
because
quick.
When I was writing down all the principles that I knew had to happen, you had to have collaboration, communication, teamwork, efficiency, organization, time management. I mean, all the, but communication was the key to everything.
Yes.
And here's the thing about what I saw between the practice houses versus the house, is that the cement trucks, when they did the flags, that's a form of communication.
Right.
'Cause it was so loud.
Yeah.
I think tell me about the practice house, why you had to have those flags versus the first time.
Well, the first truck, I believe everything just started to dry up in the drum. So it just really never got to take off. It just started coming out in big chunks. 20 years ago, this is, by memory. But the trial run didn't last very long. We just couldn't ever really get it started because of the concrete. But it didn't take long for that guy to get his
When
mixture.
did you guys figure out, I think through the practice house, even colors on the shirts of teams that were supposed to be in and who's supposed to be out? Did y'all have the colors the first time, or that's another form of communication, just the colors of each team?
Jose, I'm not real sure. We had the committee guys, we had the fluorescent shirts, and there's red shirts and some tan shirts for the framers. So everyone knew who was what, which was great because, you have 1,000 people out there. You don't know if they're the electrician, you don't know if they're the plumber, even though a lot of us, back then knew a lot of the guys, but we just didn't know. So that was great that he implemented the color coordination with the shirts. That way we knew who was what. That really helped. But again, the technology wasn't there, so we all had like CB radios. It wasn't. It's not like it is now. But
I think we're talking about not just a house. We're talking about the landscape was done.
Yeah,
there was a fence all the way around.
There's
the
a
thing
fence.
that was done.
There were sprinklers in that actually functioned.
The sprinkler system, the heating and cooling system.
Everything.
It was everything to turnkey. And that house, was a fundraiser. We all have great ideas or ideas that we think that are great. But the obstacle with building this house was realizing he had to inspire and motivate 600 volunteers. It was exactly 579 volunteers.
Wow.
For this project to make that happen.
Yeah, and everybody was donating their time, and they weren't getting paid for any of it. It was all happening after work for doing the practice and all the meetings we had, the countless hours of meetings. No one was getting paid for that.
Yeah, it was
it's just all for one day.
Yeah. And I think the house sold the next day to Habitat. It was a Habitat for Humanity donation to that.
Yeah, I believe
someone bought it the day after.
I couldn't remember if it was given away, through Habitat or, it's been 20 years ago, so it's...
Well, they say that this house was more structured, better than the houses that were built.
I bet so. As quick as that concrete dried, it's almost like airport, concrete. It dried that quick. And I was there when the family got the keys and the remote to the house, and that was special, because, me and you are both Shriners. And it's special to see people, being happy for, having something maybe for the less fortunate that they can't afford. But it's great just to see the expression on their face, because that's what made all of this worthwhile to me. It takes away all the hours just to see the expression on someone's face. I mean, I guess that's what I got from it.
Even today, how did that affect your life?
It's great. At least now that we're doing this, people might believe that we actually accomplished it.
We're going to mix it. We're going to try to mix in video so everybody can see what we're talking about. But we're all, I call it domesticated animals. We believe what we believe. But when we see it done and it happens right, and then we start, it shifts
Right.
the mindset,
Yes, it does. It does. It just makes it more believable, because when you hear it, you don't believe it, you just automatically say, oh, well, that can't be done,
Because it takes at least, a day or two to set the forms and dig the footings for the foundation to be poured.
Yeah, then you
the
have a
concrete to
plumber
be
that
poured
comes
and
in to
finished.
rough it in, and the electrician, if you've got floor plugs, has to come in and dig it, and and put the electrical in before you ever decide to pour the concrete.
So you gotta have all that
Well,
set.
you had to have all that done like in minutes of each other. So that spreadsheet that Brian had, that was key. I mean, he knew exactly when everybody was going to be at what part or what phase was going to happen. And then having the the different color shirts. So yeah, the leadership and teamwork. I mean, without any of that, this would have never been accomplished. There's no way.
And then you got the war boards, and you have to sheetrock it, and then you have to tape and text the walls.
Yeah, you use the hot mud to.
That usually takes 4 days
Yeah.
before another group arrives on site to do the paint. So now
Yeah.
you're talking about painting the whole house maybe in
Right.
2 days.
Then
Then what if the weather's got to cooperate?
Yep.
You got to
Yeah.
hope that all your team shows up on time,
Right.
and then you've got all the little things that go inside of the house.
Mm-hmm.
Then the exterior side of the house, you got to do the final grade,
Yep.
lay the grass.
It's a lot. It's about a four
Shingle
month
the roof.
process.
Yeah, and he wanted to do that in less than 3 hours.
Yeah, and I was on the board then, and I just remember him walking in with that idea, and everyone. I remember Brad Root was like, "No way," and I was like, "Yeah, that's not even possible." But then he showed us the video, and it's like, "Wow, it was done," and then it made it, really more surreal that we could do it, that we could definitely accomplish it. But
Does the Home Builders Association today even know about the project, what happened 20 years ago?
I would imagine, I would think so. Yeah, and in fact, there's probably some pictures of it, inside. I haven't been inside the TABA in a while, but I would imagine they probably have, some pictures of the house, the before and after. That was the first time I saw the video that you just showed me before this podcast, and sure brings back a lot of memories. I know there was a lot of issues with the air hoses, because there's hundreds of air hoses, and some were unhooked, and you'd pick up one hose and it didn't have any air in it, so it was just a constant battle trying to find a electrical cord that was actually working, or air hose. So everyone's just grabbing everything. It happened so quick, you just didn't really have time to think. But it's all that practice that they did before that just made it like a well-oiled machine.
When you had the 2 house and the practice house, because that's lessons by itself. How do you deal with failure?
Right.
So having that, and then knowing, and it actually happened during Hurricane Katrina. Down at Katrina.
Katrina.
Katrina, yeah.
Yeah.
And so you couldn't even get the electrical deals. You had to get it out of Oklahoma City because everybody was they were
Right.
pretty well out of it. I think there was a story behind that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so your biggest takeaway in your personal life and your biggest takeaway in your business life, how does that project apply to you personally?
Anything's possible. I mean, you get the right group of people together and you get the right mindset. Obviously, it is possible. Because a lot of things that people said that this couldn't be done. Yes, it could, and it did. So everything is possible, but it's all about teamwork, and it's.
And we got the 2-hour house book, and we're going to I wanted to put your perspective into it because, kind of a new addition with your story, and everybody else has got a story about their part into the whole. And I think the thing that you brought up is that everybody's got to believe in it.
Mm-hmm.
You got to practice like crazy to make sure it's.
You do.
Of course, you got to meet the safety standards. That's the most important thing.
Right.
And then you got to deal with the naysayers.
Yeah.
Then you really got to organize, and then you got to really collaborate. I always felt like 1 and 1's 11, not 2, if you work together
Correct.
real well.
Correct.
And then, and how did it apply to your business today? And
Well, yeah, anything is possible because we accomplished that, and a lot of the different projects I've that I've done in the past, other contractors said, "Oh, this can't be done." Well, that's always what I wanted to hear, because I knew that it could be done, because this could be done. So, yeah.